most of pitching is just telling information. I think a lot of people think you go up there and you do like a Dungeons and Dragons level reenactment. That gets you kicked out.
Yeah.
They don't want that. And they don't really care about that. If your main priority is getting through this transaction and getting you what you want and getting what they want at the same time. For me, it was world building, but also proof that there was an untapped market. So the cool thing about Brutus is it's set in Vegas, and I kind of talked about it at the Q&A, but it's not a story about gambling and a mob and, you know, there's drugs in it, but it's not like Fear and Loathing where it's just doing drugs on the strip. It's about the people who make up Vegas.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Ghost Podcast. Today, I'm with the one and only JoJo Scanlon.
What's up?
So, JoJo, I just recently met you, but I like that you were doing animation. But I know that you started with live action first.
I did.
But let's start with what got you into filmmaking.
For sure. So, my start with filmmaking is kind of weird. I was born in Chicago, but my family ended up moving to Vegas in like 2008 during the housing crisis because there was basically no money in Chicago for what my family did, but there was a ton of money in Vegas for it. So we moved out here around like 2008, and I had like no friends. No one back from home would like write me or text me. So my parents were like, shit, we gotta get this kid some friends. And so they enrolled me in a filmmaking camp at Sahara West Library in Summerlin. And I had no interest in film. It was like the only camp they had left. And I just like fell in love with it. It was just something that came not naturally, but I could do it a lot easier than a lot of other things. I think because my brain was like, I was a Lego kid. So editing was like Legos and writing was like doing weird improv, like doing bits in my head that I would always just do. And then I forgot about it. I just was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And was like, oh, I actually want to be in a rock band. I want to be a rock musician. And I was pretty good, but I couldn't find anyone who wanted to be in a band with me because everyone already had bands. And then in high school, I fell in love with creative writing because I had to take a writing class to like finish out my high school degree. It's weird in high school they make you do the college thing where it's like you have to take a specific course or you don't get to graduate. So they made me do a writing course, and then I rediscovered film and was like, oh shit, wait, the rock thing might not work, but this might work a lot better. And it's cool how music and film kind of intertwine. Like it's kind of the same, not the same world and the same language, but it's very similar. So it wasn't a massive departure from like going like, I want to be a rock star to I want to be a director.
Yeah.
And I like Criterion Channel now.
Okay.
And I made a web series. It sucked. It was not good. But it got me into college, went to film school, and then moved back out here. Yeah.
So I'm curious, what did you guys go over in the summer program? Do you remember?
Oh God.
How did it start?
It was like a film jam. I think film jams didn't exist at that point, but it was basically that.
I don't know what that is.
Oh really? Yeah. Okay. Do you know what like a game jam is?
No.
So oh God, this is weird. Did you meet Matisse at the film festival, at the Damn Short Film Festival where we met?
The French dude?
Yeah, the French guy. We had to explain to him what ranch was. Because
the sauce?
Yeah, the sauce. And we everyone was trying to wrap their brains around how do you explain ranch? Because there is a way to explain it, like, these are the ingredients, but that's not ranch.
Hey, dip it in some fries, then you'll find out what it is.
That's what we made him do. And he was like, oh, wait, hold on. He's like, this is so good.
Yeah.
I love this so much. But it's kind of like that where I'm like, shit, now I got to figure out what a film jam is. Okay, so it'll basically be like normally it's like you have 24 hours to make a movie. And you put a team together beforehand and then you go in and you make a movie. But for this, because it was a bunch of teens and middle schoolers, they were like, you guys have a week to make a movie. And we're going to guide you through every part of a process. So we're going to teach you how to write and how to... It was very simple. It wasn't like full-on filmmaking, but it was we wrote something, we shot something, we edited it, and then that was it. Okay. And we just left it. And then we had a screening for our parents. I can't remember what my movie was. It had something to do with a gorilla, which is funny because there's a gorilla in my project, and that's not intentional at all. That's funny. But
did you write, or what did you do? You remember?
I don't think I wrote. I think I acted in it, and I did a little bit of directing, and I did most of the editing. Editing came really naturally to me. And before I went to college, editing was basically all I did. I would like make memes and I used Photoshop and I would just like make funny pictures, which was great because when I got to film school, it was so easy to just transfer those skills because all of my friends would be like at film school were like, oh, I can shoot something, but I don't know how to edit. And I'm like, oh boy, I know how to do this. I can help. I finally have value. And yeah, but I wish I'm trying to get in contact with someone from the library to get that movie.
I was gonna ask, are they still doing that or?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'd have to check in if they are. I'd love to go in and like teach a class.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Because that would be pretty sick. But
Yeah.
I feel like now that I'm saying that out loud, that's a lot of pressure to teach a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
You saw how much I struggled with the film jam thing. I don't think I can teach kids how to. Here's how cinematography works. Here's
Yeah.
mise en scène.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. I wish they still had those things.
They probably
Because I
do
never heard of it.
somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they have those classes, but yeah, that's cool.
They're probably like online now. I feel like, do people still? I go to the library, but do people still go to libraries often?
I mean, there's still some like programs and stuff in libraries, and it depends where you go. I've seen like some libraries that have like really cool setups. Like there's like a library, I can't remember which one it is, but they have like a studio, like a sound studio and stuff. So if people want to do like music and I just can't remember which one it was, but if you like look it up, like you can find it. So how was your experience with film school?
It was good. It was good. Most people I learned at film school that are in film are full film background for most of their life. Like from age 5, they knew they wanted to make movies. And that might have just been my school too, because I've talked with people and some people didn't have that experience, but it was very clear, like some of the people who were going there were like for real about this. And I was for real about it, but I didn't have that formal experience where it was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm just like, I think I had like $100 Fujifilm camera from Amazon, like a literal point and shoot. It had no settings, no nothing. And I was working with kids who had like teenagers, but I say kids for everybody. I was working with kids that had like $500 Sony cameras.
Yeah.
And they were like teaching me how to do all of this stuff. And I'm like, this makes no sense at all. But it was cool because it was like a whole new world for me to explore. I love learning stuff and forcing myself to be an idiot. I love being the idiot in a room where it's like everyone else is teaching me how to do it, and then I excel at the thing once everybody's moved on from it. But it was fun. It was really fun. I would probably compare it to like culinary school, where I think people go in thinking it's going to be a very fun time, and it is, but it's also very brutal. I had a professor tell a friend of mine, we did like this documentary thing. No one was good at documentaries. That's like the one thing in film school that everyone thinks they're going to be good at, and everyone sucks at it because there's a whole different like style of storytelling for it. And my friend, I'm not going to say his name, we'll call him John. John made this really good documentary, I felt, but some of the stuff was weird about it. And his professor was yelling at him and was like, if you're not serious about this, you should just drop out. And he considered it.
Wow.
And I was like, and he had come from like Puerto Rico.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, no, dude, you can't. I'm telling you right now. I'm like on the phone with him in my dorm room, like in fuzzy pajamas. Like, I am not the person who should be dealing with this emotional crisis. But I'm like, you can't go.
Wow.
And he didn't. And I'm so thankful because he made some really cool stuff after that. But I think he did end up dropping out for like personal reasons. But
So do you remember what projects you started doing right after school?
right after school.
And what did you like more? Like writing, directing, cinematography? What did you focus on?
I really focus on writing and directing. Cinematography I'm decent at, but I've just discovered like my brain isn't really circuited for it. I can get there with like enough Pinterest scrolling and like watching movies, but like my brain doesn't naturally come up with amazing shots. In terms of like directing from emotional crises like that one, I've just learned how to get real human emotion. Which they teach you in film school, but they teach you like there's result-driven directing and then there's emotional-driven directing. There's a different word for it, but I call it emotion-driven directing. And a lot of people do result-driven directing, which is just like you're sad and go. And there's not much room you can go with that. Versus emotional directing, you're like getting really in with the actor and spending time like explaining why a character works the way they do. And I love that because I usually just smoke weed and do that with my friends. Like, why do you think you do that? Why do you think you watch porn at 4 a.m? Let's talk about that. And then writing, I just love building worlds, and I love like exploring how my mind works. And it's a really cool way to I've always had a hard time with topics. I was special ed from kindergarten to senior year of high school. And there was some stuff that came really naturally to me, like Shakespeare came naturally to me and world history did, but I didn't understand how clocks worked until I was like an analog clock, not like the concept of time, just like the two-hand movie clock.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that until I was like in middle school. I couldn't tie my shoes until I was like a senior in high school. Like some things just my brain did not understand.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my film work is me going into the bigger concepts like that and trying to figure those out in front of everybody. Which is funny because the project I showed at the Damn Short Film Festival, premiering now at a city near you, is me coming to terms of like exploring your comfort zone, and how for a long time I thought like, oh no, you should stay in that. It's a comfort zone for a reason. And then I realized like, oh no, wait, the fun stuff is outside of it. It's not just that you should do this for personal like growth and development. You should do it because the stuff you want is not in your little bubble. It's 10 miles outside of it. And you got to start walking now if you want it like anytime within the next 5 years.
Awesome, man. So tell me like about right after college, you got this internship, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's how you got into animation. And you're the first person I have on to talk about animation, so I'm excited for that.
Oh my gosh, so much pressure.
So,
okay. Well, I think it's great because...
Well, no, because your animation was good. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no.
It's fun because I don't come from an animation background. I only really worked in live action up until this. So I interned for Starburns Industries. They did the animation for Rick and Morty. They did all the animated episodes for Community. I don't know if you saw Community, like all the like not CGI, but like the Christmas episodes. They had like the clay. That was them. And they also did a movie called Anomalisa.
Oh, I seen that movie.
It's really good.
That was great.
So good.
And I'm not a big. It's not claymation, but it's like it's stop motion, right?
It's stop motion, yeah. But they'll usually use clay for, so they call them puppets.
Yeah.
That was something that blew my mind. They just went through and explained that whole process to me. They're called puppets because they can change out the parts of it. So like how a puppet, you're only really moving the mouth and the arms. That's what this thing is. It's like a skeleton that they just put clay on. And then they can like change out the mouth or change out the hands. And they do that a lot in Anomalisa. But I got an internship with them because I grew up with Rick and Morty. I loved Rick and Morty. I've cosplayed as Rick Sanchez on a number of occasions.
And what was the process to get that internship? What did you do?
I just emailed him. I emailed him. So I did a program for my school called Semester in Los Angeles. A lot of colleges in the Midwest and the East Coast do it because they can't give you the full like Hollywood experience, and they know that. So they're like, we're going to ship you out to LA. You'll work there for 15 weeks. You'll finish out your credits, and you get to like explore LA with the goal of you come back for graduation, and then you stay in LA. And so they were like, okay, you're accepted into the program. You now have 5 weeks to get an internship with a massive studio, and they need to be accredited. So you can't just work for like your friends. You have to work for a real ass studio. And they were just, the cool thing was they gave us Variety Insight, I think it's called. Variety has a program where it's like a database of information, and you can find like the contacts for everybody. So I was literally calling like Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. I was calling like Channel Frederator, everybody I could, being like, please, I want to do an internship so bad. I will literally do anything. And most of them don't even accept your calls. I think Adult Swim, when I called them, I got like a security guard at the desk, and I was like, can you put me into somebody? And he's like, no.
So,
but with Starburns, they had an email, and I emailed them about something completely different, and then emailed them like a few months later being like, hey, I need an internship. Is there any chance? And they were like, actually, yeah, we're looking for interns right now. And it was me and one other girl, and we did development work, which is just like reading pitch decks. And I never got coffee for anyone, which was so relieving because that's all my friends did. They were like, yeah, I'm at Warner Brothers, and I have to go to Starbucks 5 times a day. I'm like, oh, yeah, man, my job sucks. I'm looking at pitch decks all day. Ugh.
So did you apply to any of the live action ones, or just, because you said Cartoon Network? And
yeah, I went towards animation just because animation is fun to me, and it's a world I wanted to learn about, but I went for everything I could.
Okay.
Oh God, it's like, it's one of those things where you just bury the information. I got so many rejections that I was just like, as soon as someone rejected me, I'm like, I'm never watching your stuff ever again. I'm trying to remember I think Blumhouse had one of the best rejections. I think they emailed me and they were like, "So we can't give you an internship, but we looked at your work and we really liked it. Please keep trying. Don't give up. Like, we just don't have room."
Oh, wow.
And that was really cool because
That's
a lot of companies were just like,
Nope.
either nope or literally like no email.
Yeah.
And I would assume like, okay, it's been like 2 weeks. I'm not hearing back. There was one company that emailed me immediately after I got the Starburns offer, and I was like, "No, I'm sorry. No, I'm a big boy now. I got my cool boat. I'm not going with you guys.
Okay,
You took
that's
too
cool.
long."
Yeah, man. So let's talk about after you did the internship, you created this project called Brutus.
I did, yeah.
And it's a 2D animated project. So talk about it and tell me the inspiration for it.
For sure. So the whole idea behind it started when I was interning for Starburns. I would get all of these pitch decks across my desk, and I had an NDA, so I can't say what was in them. But a lot of them were really cool, and a lot of them were from names I had never heard of before. There were maybe one or two where I was like, "Oh shit, that guy's pitching a show," but it was not like Steven Spielberg. It was like somebody on the lower end that I just knew from my weird corny art stuff. But I was looking at all these pitch decks, and I'm like, I could totally do this. This doesn't seem like an impossible feat. And I was doing a writing class in this program, and one of the assignments was to come up with a bunch of pitches for TV shows. And one of them was I wanted to write a show about a metal drummer who was extremely socially anxious, and every episode followed him like struggling to do stuff. So like one episode that we wrote was he has to get gas, but the gas pump isn't working, so he has to go in and talk to someone. And it's just this like total clusterfuck of like he can't go up, he's hiding behind shelves, he's like pretending to buy something, and then he buys it and he's like, "Wait, I didn't get the gas," and he has to go back in.
Yeah.
And in the pitch, I wrote that he had a silverback stature because I just love wordplay like that. And my professor was like, "Why isn't he a gorilla?" And I was like, "Oh," because BoJack was really popular, and I was like, "You can't beat BoJack. No one can fight BoJack." But my professor was like, "No, you should try. Like, don't worry about that. Just make a cool idea." And I started writing this show, and the thing I kept coming back to was Vegas, because growing up here, like when I was going to school in Chicago, I would tell people about what it was like living in Vegas, and they'd be like, "That's so fucking weird." Like I would tell people about, we would do bonfires at my school all the time. We'd just go out to the desert, we'd bring a bunch of pallets and a bunch of like old shitty furniture, we'd light it on fire, drink around it, and that was a party. And one of my friends was like, "You cannot tell people that story because it makes you sound like a sociopath." I'm like, "No, it's cool." And so I was like, if people find that weird, there's got to be other stuff in Vegas culture that they're just going to be blown away by. And I started coming up with this idea and pitching it to friends, and they're like, "This is really good." And it all culminated to, I wrote this pilot, and my professor brought in, not the head writer, but one of the writers of my favorite show ever, Ramy, which is Ramy Youssef. He's an Egyptian comedian. It's, in my opinion, one of the funniest shows ever. My professor got one of her writers from the show to read it, and she sat down with me and was like, "You have to make this. Like, this is incredible." And she gave me tons of pointers on like what to do and what the next steps are. And I pitched it to Starburns, and they were like, "This is really cool, but we don't really have room for it." And then I pitched it to a bunch of other studios, and they said the same thing, but a lot of them echoed that it was a good idea. And so I was like, I have two options. Option one, I had about like $15,000 in savings just from college and odd jobs and things. So I was like, option one, I can go work another assistant gig, use that money as like couch surfing money until I get a gig. And there's no guarantee I'll get one. Or option B, I move back in with my family and use that $15,000 to produce a pilot, which I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about making animations. I knew nothing about producing a project on a massive scale. But I was like, I can't go do the assistant work when I have, my mom put it the best way I could have ever physically have thought of it, like in my brain. She was like, "You can make the show now and go do the assistant stuff later. If you do the assistant stuff now, there is no guarantee you'll ever be able to pursue this idea. And even if you can, might be outdated by that point. That ship may have already sailed, and someone else." I'm a big believer that there's this like creativity pipeline. And when we get ideas, it's just like a leak dropping from the pipe. And if we don't use it, it's going to evaporate back into a pipe and someone else is going to use it. So I was like, if I don't do this, someone else is going to. And that's fine, but I want to be the guy to tell this story. So I moved back in with my mom, no brainer. And I started producing this pilot. It took about 5 months of pre-production and then about 6 months of actual production, which for animation is nothing. We had one animator working on the whole thing, which, again, is unheard of. You normally have 5 or 6 people, but Michael Salkowitz, who stepped up to this, has bigger balls than I think even I did. He was like, I would be writing notes on shots and sending them to him, and he would have shots done before I even sent the notes. And I'd have to be like, dude, you got to go back. I didn't say that's not what I want.
Oh.
But he was just so excited about the project that I couldn't rein him in as much as I wanted. So we got it done in like record time, and then we had a ton of budget money left over. So I was like, I'm just going to submit this to every film festival I can.
Yeah.
Thinking, I'll maybe get into one. And the Damn Short Film Festival was our 7th official selection.
Oh, okay. Dope.
Or no. Yeah, it was our 7th.
Nice.
Which was super exciting. And we never officially had a screening in the Nevada area. So it was like our homecoming show, and it was so cool.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like, to go back to the pitching stuff, I'm thinking like it really helps you that you were at a film school, because you were able to get these connections to pitch and be able to get like, you know, someone from the Ramy show. So talk about like how what goes into like the pitching, and what do you have to work at, or what do you have to do in order to be able to get that pitch like seen by them?
So I think there's a few things. I'd say the biggest thing that a lot of people don't think of is it's not your connections, it's your friends' connections. I think you're always taught like you're only as successful as the people you work with, but it's a step further from that, because it's the people you know who know other people. And I would have never gotten that meeting with the Ramy writer if it weren't for my professor. And I would have never gotten that if I never took the shot to do the Los Angeles program, which goes back like 1,000 steps. But it's more of a thing of just like setting an intentional goal in your mind and allowing the universe to kind of work through that with you. Because obviously it's a big goal to be like, I want one of the writers of my favorite show to tell me my show is good. And I could have never manifested that on my own, but just making a cool project and putting it out and showing James Fino, who is I don't know what his role is in Starburns. He's the big guy at Starburns, I say. So there's Dino Stephanopoulos, who's above him, and then, well, they were co-founders. I don't know. It's a whole thing. But James Fino was one of the head guys at Starburns, and he told me, you should tell everyone you can what you want to do, because you never know who you're talking to or what they can do for you. And he was like, that's how I've gotten every opportunity in my life. He was like, I want to be a writer. I told people I want to be a writer, and a friend of a friend hooked me up on a job on home improvement. And I wanted to produce, and a friend of a friend heard and got me a job on King of a Hill. And like that was his whole career, just working through his friends. And obviously there's a lot of hard work, but it's your network more than anything. So what I tell people is just make friends. Don't go to networking things and try and like schmooze and be like, nice to meet you. What can you do for me?
Yeah.
Like this is just a friendship.
Yeah, just
I think.
hang out. Yeah.
I think we're friends. But it's like that. Like we're friends. I know people that you might want to talk to. You know people I might want to talk to. And in doing that, we're helping each other.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is a really good pitch. And Shark Tank is the greatest resource ever for that. Because when you watch Shark Tank, it's not so much about what they're pitching, it's how they're pitching it. The best pitches on Shark Tank are people that go up and say, hi, Sharks, my name is Ba. Here's my product. I'm looking for this much, and here's how much I'm willing to give you. Here's how much sales we've made. Here's blah, blah, blah. Most of pitching is just telling information. I think a lot of people think you go up there and you do like a Dungeons and Dragons level reenactment. That gets you kicked out.
Yeah.
They don't want that. And they don't really care about that. Like, they do, but they care about it as much as when you're at the grocery store, how much you care about the lady who's checking you out, like what she's doing after work. It's something that they might care about, but it's not their main priority. Their main priority is getting through this transaction and getting you what you want and getting what they want at the same time. So it's really hard to boil it down to like really simple stuff. But if you're interested in pitching at home, I would say watch Shark Tank, but also Seed and Spark is an incredible resource. They are a crowdfunding page, kind of like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but it's made by filmmakers for filmmakers. And they also do a ton of like webinars and like educational tools. I'm still learning how to pitch. I don't really fully know. And they have a whole program on like making a crowdfunding campaign, and I'm actively doing that. And I know how to pitch. So it's something you're working on your entire career. But
so what went into your pitch deck, like for this animation specifically?
it was a lot of, for me, it was world building, but also proof that there was an untapped market. So the cool thing about Brutus is it's set in Vegas, and I kind of talked about it at the Q&A, but it's not a story about gambling and a mob and, you know, there's drugs in it, but it's not like Fear and Loathing where it's just doing drugs on a strip. It's about the people who make up Vegas. And there's not really anything doing that. So a lot of people were open to that idea. And then the fact that it was animated also helped because animation is really in right now. Everybody loves animation. Kids love it. Old people love it. People in the middle love it. But also it was the characters, I think, because a lot of the characters in this series, past like what's in the pilot, are really interesting and deep. And they're not like SpongeBob where it's like, SpongeBob is a sponge. It's like, no, Brutus is a gorilla because he's deeply, deeply insecure. And inside he's this little guy, but outside he's this giant silverback statured gorilla. Like a silverback is the king of the jungle in a way. And this guy is not even a king of his own mind. So a lot of executives, when I would tell them that, are like, oh, that's really interesting. And also, like, my background is cool. A lot of people love hearing about background. So I'm Palestinian. So there's little stuff like that where it's like I am technically in this diversity camp and they like to hear that, but they also like to hear about backgrounds, like all the stuff I was saying about. I went to film school and I interned for these studios and these are the opportunities I've had. So they want to hear about who you are past, like, I can hold a camera.
Yeah.
They want to know, like, what can they bring to the table and what audiences can they tap in on? Because that's something that, obviously, they're in the business of making money, and we're in the business of telling stories. So when you're pitching, you're telling them, how can I make you money? And then they will usually follow up with, okay, but what's the show about? And that's when you get to tell them, like, here's my ideas. It was probably a bad idea to do animation this quick, though, because as soon as I would be like, yeah, I've never done animation, they're like, ooh, no. Credibility is massive. That is, I think if you can have the best pitch in the world, if you have no credibility, they don't listen to you. So it's a matter of building up your portfolio and building up your network to a point where you can stand on your own. So like right out of film school, you're probably not getting a show with Adult Swim. But maybe if you do a few gigs after film school, work some odd stuff, get into some film festivals, get some awards, maybe then they'll listen to you. And that's when you should have that amazing pitch ready. Because once that door opens, you want to come in and like break the whole house down.
Yeah.
You know?
You got to be ready.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. A lot of great information. So what's your plan right now with the animation? You're trying to create a whole season? And
I am, yeah. So this project was one part in a much larger world I want to create. And the whole goal was to make a TV show. So right now we're looking into how to fund season 1. I have 10 episodes completely ready to go. Pre-prod, character development, like everything is done. We're just looking for money and we're looking for a platform.
For the actual production?
For the actual production, yeah. And we still haven't released the pilot, so that's going to be very indicative of what we do. Yeah. Right now we're considering doing a web series, like putting it on YouTube and Vimeo and places like that, but we're waiting to see what happens with the animated pilot first and foremost, because a few of my friends are like, you should take it to market, and a few of them are like, no, you should hit up a studio and have them make it, and some people are like, no, don't do any of that, make it yourself. And it's a really, so one person was like, can you make it into a movie? I was like, maybe. And that's another thing with pitching. You'll come to the table with a thing like, here's my amazing horror movie, and you're like, cool. Horror isn't really selling right now. Would you be open to making a musical about rabbits? But we're still going to do that. We're just going to change everything about it. And you have to make the hard call of like whether you want to do it or not. And I had an executive be like, can we make this a movie and then make it into a show? And I was like, Chief, I don't know how to tell you this. It's usually the other way around. Yeah. I don't think people are watching a movie and saying, you know what I want? 40 more hours of this, unless it's a really good project. Like Dune, I'd get a whole show with Dune. But if Dune was a show and then a movie, I'd be like, I'm probably good with that.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of like 2D animated movies come out other than like the Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
But that's already like a product of like Marvel.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
even
harder to
that,
do something original.
even that, it's hard to turn it into a show.
Yeah.
Like it's already such a robust, fully self-centered
As a film,
project.
yeah.
And a lot of people would watch the movie, build an aesthetic and build a world in their mind, then a show would come out and they'd be disappointed. Versus if there was a Spider-Verse show, went for 2 or 3 seasons, and then they made Across the Spider-Verse into a movie,
Yeah.
people would lose their minds.
Yeah.
It would be a completely different response.
I feel like people love it enough, at least for Spider-Verse. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would probably watch a series of
Oh,
that.
no, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool, man. So that's pretty much what's next for you. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up? No.
I don't know. How are you
All right.
doing? What's
I'm
going
good,
on with
bro.
you? What's
Oh,
going on
man,
in your
I'm-
world?
I'm working, bro. This is right now.
Tell the people one thing you got going on right now.
Right now, we are working on the podcast, and I'm rewriting stuff, and hopefully, we'll get to shoot something, maybe before it gets too hot.
Good shit.
So, writing a short, and then another short at the end of the year. So,
Hell yeah, man. I'm
and then
excited to
the
see it.
short still in the festival circuit, and yours is in the festival circuit still.
It
right?
is, yeah. We're considering whether we want to pull it out or not. But a lot of people are telling me to keep it in.
Do you
I just
remember how many you submitted to? You said you got 7 approved. Or
Yeah,
7.
we submitted to around, and I've been told now you're not supposed to do this, but I submitted it to like 60-something film festivals. Yeah. And I did it just because we had leftover money. I was like, this is the only opportunity I'm going to get to do this. I might as well shoot my shot at every single corner of the world.
Yeah.
The funny thing is the European festivals rejected it first.
Oh, really?
The European ones were like, no.
Nah.
And I think it's just because you've seen it. It's a super American thing,
Yeah.
I think. And I didn't even think about that. Like, just like the ranch thing, I'd have to explain to people in Germany what beer pong is. Like, that might
Yeah.
not... I'm not very worldly. It's
Interesting.
becoming very clear. They might have beer pong out there.
I think, if you have 60, I say damn because of the price. But if you had the money
Yeah.
for it, then I would do 60. You know what I mean?
Which we
You
did,
gotta
yeah.
just throw your ball
Yeah.
to every court kind of thing.
I was like, yeah, I can keep these and buy a few pairs of Jordans, but if I
Yeah.
get into a film... And I was under the impression that with film festivals, you meet a lot more producers than you do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really meet a ton of producers. I met maybe like 1 or 2 and we had follow-ups, but unless you're going to like Sundance and Slam Dance, you're not meeting people that can like produce your work or
Yeah.
help you develop it. You'll make friends who can like help you with writing and help you with like getting gigs, but not so much of like, hey, your show's really good.
Yeah.
Do you want to deal with Netflix?
That's what I've noticed. It's mostly filmmakers and the people that hold the festivals.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good way of, for me, it was a good way of getting feedback and seeing what
yeah.
other filmmakers thought of my stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was cool. All right, bro. That's JoJo. I'm going to leave his information below. I'm going to post the trailer so you guys can check out the trailer for Brutus.
Yes, please.
And see you guys next time. Peace.